Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. So put the kettle on, make yourself a cup of tea or coffee if you would prefer, or maybe a hot chocolate since it's Easter. Happy Easter, by the way. But anyway, let's talk some boxing. Now, Dillian Whyte has seemingly called out Deontay Wilder on Instagram, saying that he wants to punish him, and he called him also a fraud and a clown, or a fraud clown, to be precise. So he would like to fight Deontay Wilder. Now, first off, I would like to say that I don't see Deontay Wilder taking this fight before he has a comeback fight. I mean, I'm not really entirely sure that he will take the fight anyway, but he's definitely not doing it after coming off of a loss to Tyson Fury and all of that inactivity, so just wait for that excuse to come. So Dillian Whyte would like to fight him next, and that could take place in late summer because Dillian Whyte said that is when he wants to fight again, or Eddie Hearn said that is when they are looking to get him out again, around summertime. And Dillian Whyte will likely fight 3 times this year. At least that is the plan. Obviously Povetkin, then it will be perhaps Deontay Wilder or that date they are looking towards, then someone else later in the year. So Dillian Whyte does expect to be active during 2021. It is just about getting the right fights at the right time for him, because next year he will be hopeful of getting a world title opportunity. So he doesn't want another slip up like Povetkin, which he did put right, but still, his focus is going to be a world title opportunity, although he is interested in getting in the ring with Deontay Wilder. Now this is a great fight, one I would love to see. I'm not entirely convinced it will happen, but still I do want to see it, and it's a big payday for Deontay Wilder. It gives him an opportunity to get back to the top after losing to Tyson Fury, and he looked completely out of place in that ring with Tyson Fury. Call it what you want, talk about the excuses, but at the end of the day, the better man won. That's why he's going into a fight for undisputed with Anthony Joshua. So given that, Deontay Wilder needs to prove himself. So he cannot fight a Bogdan Dinu next and prove himself that way. He must fight a Dillian Whyte. Then he can prove himself. Now if not Deontay Wilder for Dillian Whyte, then who could it be? Well, I believe it could, maybe even should be the winner of Usyk versus Joe Joyce if that fight ever gets off the ground, because they seem to be having a lot of trouble getting that fight over the line, almost as much as Undisputed, right? So that is a difficult fight to make clearly for those behind the scenes, but it seems like they want to spin it so that Parker versus Chisora potentially gets the opportunity at the winner of that fight. I believe it should be Dillian Whyte, although Dillian Whyte currently holds the interim WBC World Championship, or Diamond Belt. He wanted the Diamond Belt after, so I don't know what is going on with that, but anyway, he has that title. Then Joe Joyce versus Alexander Usyk is for the interim WBO World Championship. So can he really hold 2 interim statuses at the same time? I'm not sure if he can do that, because if he was world champion then he could go and unify the belts, but considering it is an interim status, so almost like a champion in waiting but still not the champion of that belt. And as we know, Dillian Whyte was taken away from the rankings within the other governing bodies due to his success with the WBC and holding their interim status. I mean, at one point he was number 1 with the WBO, then Usyk moved up and became a mandatory, so therefore he missed his opportunity to be called as mandatory within that governing body. If Usyk didn't move up, then it would be Dillian Whyte, who is mandatory to Anthony Joshua, not Usyk. It does seem like Dillian Whyte is looking towards a Deontay Wilder fight or an Andy Ruiz Jr. fight. Those are the names mentioned by Eddie Hearn, and they were talking about taking him to the States in the summer, or maybe even back to Gibraltar for a fight outside in a stadium or something like that. So that is on the cards for Dillian Whyte. But then you have the likes of Chisora, you have the likes of Parker. They will fight on May 1st. Then the Joe Joyce versus Usyk fight. There are 4 fighters there, and the winner of those fights could fight Dillian Whyte. So you could get an Usyk versus Dillian Whyte, or if he wins, a Joyce versus Dillian Whyte. Those are fights for Dillian Whyte. I mean, the winner of Chisora versus Parker as well. Maybe a trilogy with Chisora or a rematch with Joseph Parker. Having said that, when talking about future opponents for Dillian Whyte, the names of Ruiz and Deontay Wilder seem to be the only ones that come up, and probably that is because Eddie Hearn is looking at making fights with those guys. I'm not thinking that Deontay Wilder is going to fight him, so I would count that one out, at the moment anyway, unless Wilder comes out with something and says he does want to fight Dillian Whyte, which he'd done before but he didn't really capitalise on that. So, and he did have the rematch with Povetkin, so there was no way they could fight then, but it does seem more plausible now. If Wilder wants it, Dillian Whyte has proven he does, and he's proven that also with his resume, fighting top fighters back to back, so he will take the fight. It does come down to Deontay Wilder if he does want to take it or not. And the thing is about Deontay Wilder is he comes and goes. One minute he's all in the news talking about conspiracy theories and talking about his comebacks and names he would like to get in the ring with. Then you don't hear from him for months. I know he's got this arbitration with Tyson Fury, but that doesn't mean he cannot talk. That doesn't mean he cannot talk about Dillian Whyte, Anthony Joshua, even the Tyson Fury fight, because if anyone's going to say that he's not allowed to talk because of the arbitration and mediation, I don't believe that is a thing, because Tyson Fury has continued to talk about Deontay Wilder after that, and Wilder came out with all of those conspiracy theories. So I wouldn't imagine they aren't allowed to talk. Maybe they'll limit what they say, but it is just interesting how Deontay Wilder comes and goes. Maybe he's considering his future in the sport, and I don't want him to retire. I'm not his biggest fan, but I don't want him to retire, because he can be in some great fights with Dillian Whyte, with Andy Ruiz, and if he retires then he cannot have them. He's at a point in his career where he has lost one fight, and that does not define him. That means he can come back, and he can improve now, because before he was one-dimensional, before he neglected certain aspects of boxing. He can only learn so much at this stage, but he can get better, and he can come back stronger. All of the things he says, that he has dynamite in his right hand, I believe him, but then he says you don't see certain things he does in the ring. That is brilliant, or you don't see it, but it is there. Well, prove it in the ring, do these different things, go in there with a Dillian Whyte and prove yourself, because Dillian Whyte has done it continuously back to back, even when he was number one, risking that position, and it didn't pay off in the first Povetkin fight, but he got the rematch, straight back in there, and won. So Dillian Whyte has set the precedent for someone like a Deontay Wilder to understand that you can come back and you can get the victory. I mean, if Deontay Wilder rematched Tyson Fury, I don't believe he would win, but that doesn't mean that he cannot fight someone like Andy Ruiz, or even someone within the top 10, maybe even a Pulev fight, then he can get back to winning ways. A Charles Martin, which he was talking about, which fell at the wayside. But still, he needs to get back to winning ways, then he can have a Dillian Whyte fight or an Andy Ruiz Jr. fight, because he's not taking those fights now. Being inactive, coming off of a loss, Deontay Wilder won't do that. He didn't take tough challenges when he was active, and when he was winning. I mean, he took the Tyson Fury fights, so fair enough. Luis Ortiz, yeah, we'll give him that one. But at this stage, he is not fighting Dillian Whyte next unless he has a comeback. So whilst it is exciting to talk about the prospect of Whyte versus Wilder, I believe Whyte versus Ruiz is more plausible and more possible at the moment, because Ruiz has a comeback against Chris Arreola. After that, he will look to go on and move on to someone like Dillian Whyte, move up the levels. But anyway guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, also leave a like and grab that subscribe button. Thanks guys.